The truth does not knock politely. Sometimes it kicks the door completely off the hinges, walks into the center of the room, and shatters the comfortable, decorative lies everyone else was sitting around admiring. Most people in this world do not actually hate intelligence, and they certainly do not despise wisdom in the abstract sense. What they absolutely, fundamentally hate is what your intelligence and your profound wisdom make them feel about their own chosen ignorance. They hate the heavy, undeniable mirror you hold up simply by existing in their vicinity. To the chosen ones listening to this right now, the individuals who have been walking through the fire of a profound, isolating, and utterly exhausting spiritual awakening, you already know exactly what I am talking about. You are currently dealing with highly insecure, toxic, or intensely performative people who are either trying to secretly mimic your movements or actively orchestrating your downfall. You have found yourself sitting in rooms, workplaces, or family gatherings feeling entirely alien, realizing that the people around you are operating on a script that you burned a long time ago. Your situation is heavy right now. You are likely feeling a confusing mix of profound internal peace coupled with the exhausting external reality of people projecting their deepest, darkest insecurities onto you. You are watching individuals who once smiled in your face suddenly melt down over your success, your boundary setting, or even just your silent presence. You have stopped dimming your mind to make their shadows feel comfortable, and the resulting backlash has been nothing short of revealing. This is not happening because you are arrogant. This is happening because your energy is fundamentally incompatible with their performance. You are dealing with spiritual mechanics, human psychology at its absolute rawest, and the desperate flailing of egos that realize they are losing control over you. They are exposing themselves because your unapologetic authenticity leaves them with no place to hide. Let us get into it. Let us break down exactly why your wisdom is pissing people off and why you must never, ever dim your mind for them again. Before we dive into the core of this psychological breakdown, if you are a chosen one and this message resonates with the heavy reality you are currently navigating, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Drop a comment with what point hit you hardest, and share this video with someone who needs the exact same reminder today. Number 1. They tragically mistook your initial silence and observation for ignorance, and your unexpected wisdom completely shattered their false sense of superiority. When you are a highly intuitive, spiritually awakened individual, you do not enter a room and immediately announce your resume. You do not loudly broadcast your intelligence or scramble for the center of attention. You observe. You sit back. You watch the body language. You listen to the subtle inflections in their voices, and you let people reveal exactly who they are. To a deeply insecure and highly performative person, this quiet observation is entirely misinterpreted. Because their entire reality is based on loud, constant projection, they look at your silence and assume you are a blank canvas. They assume you are naive, slow, or easily moldable to their will. They build an entire internal narrative where they are the master and you are the clueless subordinate. But then, the moment arrives when you finally speak. You drop a profound truth. You set an unshakable boundary, or you execute a move with such brilliant precision that their entire manufactured hierarchy collapses in an instant. The contrast here is staggering. Your authentic, hard-earned internal alignment allowed you to wait for the perfect moment, observing the board, while their borrowed, frantic, performative facade relied on the assumption that you would never figure them out. The deep psychology behind their subsequent anger is rooted in a sudden, violent ego death. When you speak your truth, you do not just surprise them, you humiliate the version of themselves that they were playing in their own head. They are suddenly plunged into a visceral panic because they realize they have been playing a game of checkers against someone who already knew the final checkmate before the board was even set up. They are terrified of the loss of control and the stark exposure of their own stagnation. Metaphorically, they are desperately stacking cards on a windy table, loudly bragging about their architectural genius, entirely unaware that you are quietly stacking bricks on solid ground right behind them. When your truth blows through the room like a gust of wind, their cards scatter, and they are left staring at your impenetrable brick wall. It is an incredibly goofy, frantic, and tragic spectacle from the outside. You watch them scramble to pick up their flimsy cards, suddenly trying to backpedal or talk over you, desperately trying to outvolume the undeniable weight of your words. They see the calm, but they do not understand the resilience. They see the sudden strike of your intellect, but they do not comprehend the thousands of hours of silent observation that forged it. They are furious because you refuse to play the dumb, compliant character they wrote for you, forcing them to confront the terrifying reality that they were never in control of you to begin with. Number 2. You absolutely refuse to participate in the collective, comforting delusion of surface-level intelligence, and it makes them feel like they are drowning in your depth. Society is largely built on a fragile architecture of shallow agreements and polite, comfortable lies. People are deeply conditioned to exchange empty pleasantries, to agree with popular but hollow opinions, and to never, ever question the superficial nature of their daily interactions. They have memorized a script, and as long as everyone reads their lines, the illusion of safety is maintained. You, as a chosen one, have absolutely ripped that script to shreds. You do not do small talk that lacks substance, and you do not nod along to willful ignorance just to keep the peace. You demand depth, authenticity, and raw truth. The contrast here is monumental. You are operating from a place of profound, hard-earned spiritual curiosity and unyielding internal alignment, while they are operating from a desperate need to keep the waters as shallow as possible, entirely dependent on external validation and group consensus to feel secure. The deep psychology of their resentment toward you is pure, unadulterated fear of stagnation and exposure. When you introduce deep wisdom, philosophical inquiry, or spiritual truth into their orbit, you are dragging them out of the kiddie pool and tossing them into the middle of the ocean. They panic. Their fragile ego is entirely tied to the surface level, and your presence threatens to pull them under into the depths of their own suppressed consciousness. They hate you because you make them realize how dangerously unequipped they are for real life, forcing them to confront the intelligence they voluntarily abandoned for the sake of fitting in. Metaphorically, they are wearing a cheap, deflated life jacket in a bathtub, loudly bragging about their superior swimming skills to anyone who will listen. You, meanwhile, are the massive, dark, churning ocean that reminds them they would not last 5 minutes in the real, unpredictable tide. Their behavior in response to your depth becomes frantic, dismissive, and aggressively ignorant, because ignoring your depth is the only way they can maintain their illusion of safety. They will roll their eyes, attempt to quickly change the subject, or condescendingly call you too intense or too serious. From the outside, this looks profoundly tragic and painfully goofy. You can literally watch their brains short-circuit as they desperately try to paddle back to the shallow end of the conversation. They see the depth of your thoughts, but they do not understand the agonizing internal work it took to dredge that ocean. They see the weight of your words, but they do not comprehend the resilience required to carry them. They want you to dim your mind to make their puddle feel like an ocean, and your refusal to do so drives them absolutely insane. Number 3. Your mere presence forces them to ruthlessly audit their own wasted potential and the dreams they abandoned out of cowardice. There is nothing more terrifying to a stagnant individual than a person who is actively, relentlessly pursuing their highest timeline and speaking from a place of supreme spiritual alignment. When people settle for mediocrity, they enter into a subconscious agreement with themselves. They tell themselves that greatness, deep spiritual alignment, and profound wisdom are impossible for anyone, thereby excusing their own lack of effort. Then you walk into their life. You are grinding, you are healing, you are breaking generational curses, and you are expanding your mind on a daily basis. Your continuous evolution is a blaring, unavoidable alarm clock, waking them up from their chosen coma. The contrast between your life and theirs becomes a glaring, blinding spotlight. Your authentic, relentless pursuit of internal growth stands in direct, painful opposition to their performative, externally validated complacency. They rely on their peer group to validate their laziness and echo their excuses, but you completely refuse to validate it. The psychological mechanism at play here is a toxic cocktail of deep-seated guilt, profound shame, and violently projected resentment. They do not actually hate you. They hate the ghost of their own unfulfilled potential that haunts them whenever you are near. You represent everything they could have been if they had possessed the courage to endure the isolation and the pain of true spiritual growth. To protect their fragile ego from this devastating realization, they have to tear you down. Metaphorically, they are like someone parading around wearing cheap, gaudy jewelry they cannot actually afford, aggressively demanding that everyone in the room praise their immense wealth. You, on the other hand, sit quietly in the corner, possessing genuine generational wealth of the mind and soul, entirely unbothered by their loud display. The mere existence of your real gold exposes the green stains their fake jewelry is leaving on their skin. This dynamic drives them into an incredibly tragic, frantic performance. They have to find flaws in your wisdom or mock your dedication, because if they can convince themselves that you are crazy, arrogant, or delusional, then they do not have to take responsibility for their own rotting internal architecture. They will obsessively nitpick your life, desperately searching for a single mistake to magnify, all while completely ignoring the collapsing state of their own reality. They see the towering height of your success, but they do not see the grueling, bloody hands it took to lay the foundation. They see your unshakable discipline, but they do not understand the lonely nights you spent fighting off your own demons. You are a walking mirror of their abandoned courage, and they want to shatter the mirror. Number 4, they realize, to their absolute horror, that they cannot commodify, mimic, or steal the wisdom you earned through immense suffering. In today's hyper-performative culture, everything is treated as a cheap aesthetic that can be bought, downloaded, or mindlessly copied. People buy spiritual trinkets, they memorize therapy buzzwords, and they carefully curate a social media feed that makes them look enlightened, stoic, or profoundly deep. They are entirely accustomed to stealing other people's personalities and wearing them like cheap Halloween costumes, entirely reliant on external validation to feel real. But when they encounter your wisdom, the mimicry completely falls apart, because the raw truth is, the level of discernment, spiritual sight, and unshakable peace you carry was not purchased in a store or learned in a weekend retreat. You paid for it with dark nights of the soul, with agonizing betrayal, with years of profound isolation, and with the brutal, tear-soaked work of facing your own shadow. You bled for the architecture of your mind. The contrast is that your alignment is structural and permanent, forged in literal fire, whereas their persona is a flimsy, paper-thin mask held together by the tape of other people's opinions. The deep psychology of their hatred in this dynamic is rooted in the utter frustration of the ultimate consumer who realizes they have encountered something that is not for sale. They want your aura, they desperately want your respect, and they fiercely covet your gravitas, but they absolutely refuse to endure the crucifixion required to attain the resurrection. They try to parrot your words. They try to mimic your calm demeanor, but the frequency is always entirely off. Metaphorically, they are a desperate actor performing to an empty theater, begging the shadows for applause, furiously jealous of you. The master musician who plays a beautiful symphony in a quiet forest simply for the pure, transcendent love of the instrument. The counterfeit is always violently exposed by the unmistakable presence of the authentic. When they realize that your spiritual currency cannot be counterfeited, they throw a childish, resentful tantrum. It is a goofy, tragic spectacle to watch a spiritually bankrupt person try to bankrupt a millionaire of the soul, only to realize their trembling hands cannot even grasp the heavy, dense currency you are operating with. You will watch them suddenly start using your vocabulary, dressing like you, or adopting your hobbies, only to look incredibly rigid, unnatural, and frantic while doing so. They see the beautiful poetry of your life, but they do not see the thousands of agonizing drafts you threw away in the dark. They see the effortless flow of your energy, but they do not comprehend the brutal discipline required to unblock the channel. You refuse to let them steal your light, and it drives them to madness. Number 5. Your highly calibrated intuition acts as a high-definition lie detector that exposes their hidden agendas before they even open their mouths to speak. Performative, toxic people survive almost entirely on the arrogant assumption that everyone else in the world is as blind, asleep, and easily manipulated as they are. They operate through subtle manipulations, passive-aggressive jabs, disguised insults, and carefully constructed psychological traps. They genuinely believe they are master chess players, effortlessly moving clueless pawns in the dark. But you are a chosen one. Your brutal spiritual awakening has fine-tuned your intuition to a terrifying, almost supernatural degree. You do not just listen to the hollow words they say. You read the microscopic expressions on their face. You feel the sudden, dense shift in the room's energy when they enter, and you hear the loud, screaming truth hidden deeply within their silences. You see the malicious agenda before the pathetic performance even begins. The contrast here is the absolute purity of your grounded perception versus the clunky, desperate, Machiavellian nature of their endless deception. While they are exhaustingly trying to maintain a complex facade to extract validation or assert control, you are resting in a state of calm, hyper-aware, internal alignment. The deep psychology of their reaction to you is pure, unadulterated terror, the paralyzing terror of complete nakedness. For a person who hides their entire identity behind a mask, being truly, deeply seen is the ultimate existential threat to their survival. When you look at them with that calm, knowing gaze, and you politely decline their manipulative offer, or you quietly sidestep their carefully laid emotional trap, their brain goes into absolute, frantic overdrive. Their primary weapon has been neutralized. They realize that their tricks do not work on you, and this realization triggers a hostile, panicked defense mechanism. Metaphorically, it is exactly like a sleazy, amateur street magician performing his best illusions, only to realize that you are sitting in the front row, clearly seeing all the hidden strings, trapdoors and mirrors, completely unamused by the spectacle. They look pathetic and profoundly goofy, fumbling their props and dropping their cards, furious at you for turning on the blinding lights in the dark room they desperately needed to operate in. You will see them suddenly become incredibly defensive, stammering over their words, or trying to quickly change the narrative because they can feel the heavy, unblinking weight of your discernment resting on their shoulders. They see the piercing clarity in your eyes, but they do not understand the agonizing pain of past betrayal that originally forced you to open them. They see your impenetrable boundaries, but they are entirely blind to the immense emotional exhaustion that demanded you build them. You refuse to dim your sight for their comfort, exposing their entire existence. Number 6. You have become entirely immune to their manipulation tactics because you can see the rusted, archaic mechanics behind their psychological games. Gaslighting, guilt-tripping, silent treatments, and triangulation are the bread and butter of the toxic, deeply insecure individual. These dark tactics are specifically designed to disorient the victim, to make them question their own reality, and to force them into a frantic position of subservience and desperate people-pleasing. In the past, perhaps before your awakening, maybe these tactics actually worked on you. Maybe you used to bend over backwards to appease them, constantly apologizing for things you never even did. But your wisdom has massively evolved. You have studied the mechanics of human behavior, you have healed your internal wounds, and you have fortified the architecture of your mind. Now, when they attempt to gaslight you, you simply state the undeniable facts and walk away. When they try to guilt-trip you, you effortlessly recognize that their emotional dysregulation is not your responsibility. When they deploy the childish silent treatment, you simply sit back and enjoy the glorious peace and quiet. The contrast is your anchored, unshakable sovereignty versus their frantic, shifting, externally dependent goalposts. They are entirely dependent on your reaction to feel powerful, while you require absolutely nothing from them to feel secure. The psychology of their meltdown in this phase is driven by a catastrophic, terrifying loss of control. A manipulator without a willing, confused participant is exactly like a parasite without a host. They begin to starve immediately. They spiral into a chaotic, erratic frenzy, desperately escalating their behavior, throwing wild accusations, and trying frantically to find a new button to push. They are enraged by your absolute immunity. Metaphorically, they are furiously trying to pick a highly advanced, impenetrable digital lock using a rusty, bent bobby pin. They are sweating, cursing, and aggressively jiggling the handle, completely oblivious to the fact that you upgraded the entire security system of your soul years ago. Their desperation is palpable, and it completely strips them of any remaining dignity, leaving them looking completely unhinged and profoundly tragic while you remain completely undisturbed. You can watch them cycle through every toxic trick in the book, playing the victim, feigning ignorance, projecting their anger, and when absolutely none of it penetrates your peace, they mentally collapse. They see the fortress of your mind, but they do not understand the brutal, relentless attacks you survived to reinforce the walls. They see your stoic indifference, but they do not comprehend the profound self-love required to maintain it. You refuse to play their games, leaving them to play alone in the dirt. Number 7. They deeply, intensely resent your quiet confidence because their entire fragile identity requires a loud, constant stream of external validation. To the toxic, performative person, silence is entirely equivalent to death. They believe that if they are not the loudest in the room, if they do not have the most likes, if they are not the center of the drama, and if they are not constantly broadcasting their every minor achievement, they will simply cease to exist. Their confidence is not an internal fire. It is entirely rented, heavily mortgaged against the fleeting opinions of the crowd. If the crowd looks away, their identity completely collapses. Then there is you. You possess a quiet, terrifying, gravitational confidence that absolutely never announces itself. You do not need to brag. You do not need to insert yourself into the center of the room. You sit comfortably in your own heavy, grounded energy, completely detached from the frantic need to be perceived as great. The contrast is profound and undeniable. You are an internally powered, self-sustaining generator operating with deep alignment, while they are a dying battery that constantly needs to be plugged into other people to avoid fading to black. The deep psychology of why they hate your quiet confidence so violently is rooted in the black hole of their own insecurity. Your ability to simply exist, to be completely fine and whole without an audience, exposes the exhausting, theatrical, hollow nature of their entire life. They look at you and wonder with burning jealousy how you dare to feel so secure without putting on a sweaty, desperate show. They wonder how you dare to possess a piece that they have to perform constantly just to fake. They will aggressively try to label your quiet confidence as arrogance, aloofness, or rudeness because they simply cannot comprehend a reality where a person is actually comfortable in their own skin. Metaphorically, they are operating like a loud, rattling, smoking engine running on absolute fumes, making a massive amount of noise while barely moving forward, desperately trying to mask a broken transmission. You, conversely, are a silent, sleek, incredibly powerful electric motor, moving with the massive, inescapable pull of planetary gravity. Your smooth, silent progression forward highlights exactly how broken and inefficient their loud, chaotic stalling truly is. You will see them attempt to provoke you into being loud, trying to drag you into an argument just to make you match their chaotic frequency. But when you refuse to break your majestic silence, they end up screaming into a void, looking completely unregulated and goofy. They see your quiet power, but they do not understand the thousands of silent prayers that built it. They see your calm, but they are terrified of the strength it represents. Number 8. You effortlessly dismantle their artificial hierarchies of control simply by existing completely outside of them. In the toxic, performative ecosystems you have had to navigate, whether in dysfunctional families, cutthroat corporate environments, or superficial social circles, there is always a rigid hierarchy built entirely on willful blindness and fake allegiance. The rule is simple. Nobody points out the massive elephant in the room, nobody questions the toxic leader, and everybody must blindly worship the artificial ladder of status. The people trying to bring you down have based their entire self-worth, their entire reason for breathing, on their precarious position within these artificial hierarchies. They have kissed the rings, played the dirty political games, and severely compromised their integrity to climb a ladder that is ultimately leaning against the wrong wall. Their fragile ego is entirely dependent on the collective illusion that everyone else in the world values the ladder just as much as they do. Then you enter the scene as a deeply awakened chosen one. You operate on a spiritual frequency that does not recognize worldly status, superficial titles, or high school clique dynamics as ultimate authority. You treat the janitor with the exact same profound respect as the CEO, and you look at manipulative, self-appointed gatekeepers with a bored, unyielding, unimpressed gaze. The contrast is absolute. Your internal alignment makes you a sovereign entity, while their external performance makes them a slave to the system. The deep psychological shock they experience when you walk past their precious ladder without even looking up is monumental. You are exposing the horrific fact that they have been paying exorbitant spiritual rent to live in a fragile house of mirrors, while you quietly own the solid land of reality beneath it. They expect you to bow, to grovel, or to at least show some level of intimidation in their heavily curated presence. Your absolute refusal to acknowledge their self-appointed authority completely neutralizes their power, sending them into a state of frantic, desperate loss of control. Metaphorically, they are furiously defending the gates of a tiny, plastic toy castle, screaming at you to state your business, while you are calmly walking past them to inherit an entire, infinite kingdom. It is a tragic comedy to watch. They will frantically try to leverage their titles, rigidly flaunt their connections, or aggressively create scenarios where you are supposed to feel small. And when you simply blink at them, entirely unmoved by their performance, they mentally short-circuit. They look incredibly goofy, throwing all their weight against a door you have not even bothered to lock. They see your lack of reverence, but they do not understand that your reverence is reserved exclusively for the divine. They see your independence, but they are terrified of the freedom it proves. Number 9. Your unapologetic authenticity acts as a relentless mirror, reflecting the horrifying reality of their carefully constructed avatars. You show up exactly as you are. You do not hide your flaws, you do not suppress your quirks, and you speak with the raw, unfiltered, deeply resonant voice of your actual soul. You have integrated your shadow, embraced your humanity, and stopped apologizing for the space you take up. The people desperately competing with you, however, are not real people. They are walking, talking avatars. They are stitched together amalgamations of what they think society, their peers, and their followers want from them. They have surgically removed every unique, messy, beautiful part of their humanity just to fit into a sterile, highly marketable, externally validated mold. The contrast between your living, breathing authenticity and their rigid plastic performance is impossible to ignore. Your internal alignment allows you to breathe, while their external performance constantly suffocates them. The psychology driving their intense, burning hatred toward you is rooted in the terrifying realization that they have completely forgotten who they actually are underneath the mask. Your radiant authenticity triggers a deep, existential, rotting jealousy within their spirit. They secretly wish they had the profound courage to just exist as themselves, but they are far too addicted to the safety of the avatar, paralyzed by the fear of rejection. Metaphorically, it is exactly like a crisp, newly printed counterfeit $100 bill trying to pass inspection by sitting next to a heavy, unpolished, undeniable brick of solid gold. The counterfeit bill looks perfect on the surface, meticulously designed to fool the eye. But the absolute moment you test its weight, it is exposed as completely worthless. Your authenticity provides the absolute crushing contrast that instantly exposes their lack of weight. Because they know their costume cannot hold up to the scrutiny of your reality, their fragile egos dictate that they must desperately attempt to discredit your authenticity. They will try to pick apart your honesty, maliciously framing your raw vulnerability as unprofessional, unrefined, or inappropriate. They desperately want you to put on a mask so they do not feel so agonizingly exposed wearing theirs. Their behavior is a frantic, goofy attempt to normalize their own disconnection from reality. You can watch them spiral into tragic performative loops, trying to rigidly enforce social rules that you have already transcended. They see your ability to laugh at yourself, to admit when you are wrong, and to evolve in real time, and it infuriates them because their fragile avatar is completely incapable of flexibility. If their mask cracks even slightly, their entire identity shatters. They see your freedom, but they do not understand the courage it took to drop the mask. They see your truth, but they are terrified to look at their own lie. Number 10. You ruthlessly prioritize your internal architecture over external decoration, fully exposing the hollowness of their tragic priorities. As a chosen one, you understand that the only thing you truly own in this universe is the state of your own consciousness. You spend your precious energy building your mind, fortifying your spirit, aggressively healing your nervous system, and cultivating an unshakable, profound relationship with the divine. You genuinely do not care if your life looks messy, unconventional, or utterly confusing from the outside, as long as your internal foundation is rock solid. The people who are currently obsessed with mimicking or destroying you operate in the exact opposite, profoundly tragic manner. They pour 100% of their life force into external decoration. They desperately want the aesthetic of success, the flawless appearance of happiness, and the carefully curated optical illusion of peace, while their internal world is a chaotic, decaying, terrifying wasteland. The contrast is the difference between a master builder and a cheap set designer. Your authentic internal alignment ensures that you can weather any storm, while their insecure, performative facade ensures that they live in constant fear of the wind. The deep psychology fueling their hatred for you stems from a deeply repressed, suffocating panic. They know in the dark, quiet moments they try to avoid that eventually a real storm is going to hit, and their flimsy external decorations will offer absolutely no protection. Metaphorically, they are frantically building a sprawling, gaudy, neon-lit mansion directly on top of sinking quicksand, completely obsessed with the paint job, while you are quietly, methodically laying the heavy stones of a humble, impenetrable fortress on solid bedrock. When they look at you, they do not see someone who is losing the superficial game of optics. They see someone who is completely and terrifyingly immune to the weather. This loss of control over the narrative drives them into a frantic frenzy. This is exactly why they hyperfixate on your external life. They will loudly criticize your unconventional choices, maliciously mock your path, or attempt to shame you for not hitting the arbitrary societal milestones they blindly worship. They are desperately trying to drag your focus out of your impenetrable internal architecture and onto the superficial, meaningless scoreboard they control. They absolutely need you to care about the paint job, because if you focus on the foundation, they immediately lose the game. It is a profoundly tragic, goofy spectacle to watch them sitting in an actively collapsing house, violently mocking you for taking the time to pour solid concrete. They see your unshakable peace, but they do not understand the invisible labor that sustains it. They see your lack of superficial trophies, but they are completely blind to the eternal crown you wear. Number 11. Your total refusal to be confused by their manipulation directly threatens their ability to dictate the narrative of reality. You possess phenomenal, razor-sharp discernment. You politely listen to what people say, but you ruthlessly watch what they do. You meticulously track their inconsistencies. You notice the fleeting micro-expressions of malice on their face, and you absolutely do not fall for their relentless gaslighting. The individuals targeting you rely heavily, almost exclusively, on weaponized confusion to maintain their illusion of power. They constantly triangulate relationships. They expertly lie by omission. They aggressively twist historical timelines, and they constantly shift the goalposts to keep everyone around them off balance, second-guessing their own memory. The contrast is your piercing, undeniable clarity versus their desperate, cowardly obfuscation. You are anchored in the objective truth of your internal alignment, while their entire survival depends on maintaining a performative, heavily distorted version of reality. The psychology of their absolute meltdown when dealing with you is directly tied to their parasitic reliance on your self-doubt. A manipulator's greatest, most effective weapon is their victim's willingness to assume they are the one in the wrong. When you stand incredibly firm, look them dead in the eye, and flatly refuse to accept their distorted, fictionalized version of events, you instantly strip them of their primary weapon and their psychological safety net. Metaphorically, it is exactly like a tiny, distorted, creeping shadow desperately trying to intimidate the blinding, massive midday sun. The shadow only exists and has power if the sun allows a physical obstacle to block its light, but your profound clarity permanently removes all obstacles. You evaporate their pathetic illusions upon immediate contact. Their reaction to your unyielding clarity is always explosive and deeply frantic. When they realize with horror that they cannot confuse you, they will immediately switch to aggressive character assassination. If they cannot control how you see them, they will try to control how everyone else in the world sees you. They will launch frantic, messy smear campaigns, dramatically playing the victim and painting you as the cruel aggressor. From an elevated spiritual perspective, this looks incredibly goofy and deeply pathetic. They are essentially throwing a massive public temper tantrum simply because you politely refuse to drink the poison they so carefully poured for you. You watch them spin their intricate webs of lies, tangling themselves up in their own deceit, while you simply stand outside the web, completely untouched. They see the unwavering certainty in your voice, but they do not understand the brutal betrayals you survived to earn it. They see your clarity, but they are terrified of the light it casts on their darkness. Number 12. You ruthlessly expose the terrifying reality of their voluntary stagnation through your own relentless, unapologetic evolution. You are completely, fiercely committed to your own internal growth. If you find a toxic trait within yourself, you ruthlessly root it out. If a belief system no longer serves your highest good, you discard it without hesitation. You are constantly, painfully shedding old, outdated versions of yourself, emerging sharper, lighter, and more profoundly aligned with the divine. The people who are currently exposing themselves by trying to compete with you or bring you down made a conscious, cowardly decision a long time ago to permanently stop growing. They found a comfortable, low-vibrational plateau of absolute mediocrity, pitched a tent, and built a permanent, heavily defended residence there. The massive contrast is the difference between a rushing, life-giving river and a stagnant, decaying, mosquito-infested pond. Your authentic internal alignment demands constant motion, while their insecure, performative facade demands rigid, unchanging conformity. The core psychological issue driving their deep, bitter resentment is the terrifying realization that personal growth is actually a choice, which absolutely means their stagnation is entirely their own fault. Your continuous evolution violently removes their ability to play the helpless victim of circumstance. Metaphorically, it is the stark contrast between a deeply institutionalized prisoner who has spent decades meticulously decorating their jail cell, desperately trying to convince themselves they are perfectly happy behind bars, versus a free, awakened person who has simply broken the locks and is walking boldly out into the infinite, sunlit horizon. Your terrifying freedom invalidates all the time and energy they spent decorating the cage. Instead of having the humility to ask you how you successfully broke the lock, they will hurl bitter insults at you from behind the rusted bars. They will loudly claim you have changed, weaponizing the word as an insult rather than the profound compliment it actually is. They will try to forcefully pull you back into old habits, old meaningless conversations, and old toxic environments where they used to feel superior to you. Their frantic, desperate attempts to halt your incredible momentum are deeply pathetic because they are foolishly fighting against the absolute natural law of spiritual expansion. It is incredibly goofy to watch someone try to throw an anchor at a rocket ship that has already achieved escape velocity. They see the magnificent heights of your current orbit, but they do not understand the immense, explosive energy it took to break free from gravity. They see your evolution, but they are paralyzed by the fear of the unknown that evolution requires. You refuse to stop growing to make their grave feel like a comfortable bed. Number 13. You navigate life's inevitable chaos with a terrifying, unshakable stillness that conclusively proves their anxiety-driven lives are a completely voluntary choice. People who operate on low frequencies and performative scripts are absolutely biologically addicted to chaos. They actively use drama, manufactured panic, and constant avoidable crises to feel alive, to extract unearned sympathy, and to aggressively avoid doing the quiet, painful work of inner healing. When a storm inevitably hits their life, they scream, they blame everyone else, they loudly play the ultimate victim, and they forcefully demand that everyone around them panic with them to validate their complete lack of emotional control. But then they look at you. When the brutal storm hits your life, your hard-earned wisdom kicks into high gear. You do not panic. You breathe. You calmly assess the variables. You accept what you absolutely cannot control, and you execute precisely and ruthlessly on what you can. You possess a terrifying gravitational stillness in the face of profound adversity. The contrast is your masterful, authentic emotional regulation versus their complete and utter performative emotional incontinence. The deep psychology of why your unshakable peace angers them so intensely is because your stillness completely destroys their absolute favorite excuse. They desperately want to believe that the world simply makes them crazy, that their anxiety is forced upon them by unfair circumstances, and that nobody could possibly handle the pressure better than they do. But your calm, measured behavior proves that peace is a conscious choice, that emotional regulation is a learned skill, and that their chaotic, destructive reactions are a direct result of their own spiritual laziness. They desperately want you to panic with them, to scream with them, and to break down, because your calm makes them look like absolute, unhinged fools. Metaphorically, they are frantically running around the deck of a sinking ship, screaming at the top of their lungs that it is raining, while you are calmly standing in the wheelhouse, steering the ship safely through the storm. They hate the captain because the captain proves that the panic is entirely unnecessary and profoundly unhelpful. This is why they will try to intentionally trigger you, poke at your insecurities, or create massive disruptions in your life. They want to see you bleed, so they know you are human. When you simply look at them with detached, peaceful observation, their frantic behavior becomes painfully embarrassing. They are throwing a temper tantrum in a library of wisdom. They see your unshakable calm, but they do not understand the grueling internal discipline that forged it. They see your peace, but they are terrified of the silence it requires. Number 14. They finally, bitterly realize that your wisdom has built an impenetrable energetic fortress around you, and they possess absolutely no keys to enter. This is the absolute final stage of the dynamic, the ultimate crushing endgame of their toxic performative obsession with you. After exhausting themselves trying to manipulate you, desperately mocking you, attempting to outshine you, trying to gaslight you, and doing everything in their power to diminish your blinding light, they finally hit a massive, unyielding brick wall. They realize, with a profound sense of despair, that your wisdom is not just a collection of smart quotes or a superficial aesthetic you put on for the internet. It is a literal, heavy, energetic, spiritual fortress that permanently protects your soul. Your boundaries are absolute. Your internal peace is guarded by a flaming sword of uncompromising discernment. The contrast here is the absolute finality of your impenetrable, authentic peace versus the utter exhaustion of their failed, prolonged, performative siege tactics. The deep psychology operating in this final realization is the devastating, total collapse of their false self. They realize they have spent massive amounts of psychological energy and time trying to break a person who does not even view them as a worthy opponent. They are completely drained, empty, and exposed, while you are thriving, completely unbothered, and entirely focused on your own magnificent path. The crushing realization that they cannot touch you, that they cannot access your energy, and that they are permanently locked out of your peace is the most punishing, humiliating reality they could ever face. Metaphorically, they have spent years battering their bloody heads and breaking their hands against a massive solid titanium door, screaming at the top of their lungs to be let in so they can destroy the house, while you have been sitting comfortably inside the whole time, drinking tea, reading a book, and not even registering the tiny, pathetic sound of their knocking. They are utterly defeated, not by your active vengeance, not by your anger, but by your absolute, terrifying, peaceful indifference to their very existence. It is a goofy, tragic ending to their frantic performance. They are left standing outside in the cold, realizing that their entire identity was based on trying to conquer a kingdom that never even knew they were at war. They see the massive, unassailable walls of your fortress, but they do not understand the divine architecture that designed it. They see your absolute security, but they are completely blind to the fact that their own malice is exactly what provided the stones you used to build the wall. You refuse to lower the drawbridge, and they are left to wander in the wasteland of their own making. When you zoom out and look at the absolute totality of this profound, highly complex psychological battlefield, one absolute truth becomes completely, entirely impossible to ignore. Absolutely none of this is actually about your external actions, your specific words, or even your physical successes. The frantic, deeply insecure, and highly performative behaviors of the desperate people currently trying to mimic or tear you down are solely, completely reactions to your immense energy, your divine alignment, and the unshakable, massive architecture of your soul. They are violently fighting a losing war against the terrifying reality of their own stagnation, and unfortunately for them, you happen to be the brightest, most undeniable, most terrifying mirror in their immediate vicinity. As a chosen one, you must deeply, fundamentally understand that their intense hostility is the absolute ultimate confirmation of your spiritual elevation. They are targeting your peace because it is the one currency they cannot counterfeit, borrow, or steal. So let this be your ultimate empowerment. You absolutely do not need to pause your incredible journey to explain the mechanics of your bright light to people who are utterly, passionately committed to entirely misunderstanding you. You do not need to seek petty revenge. You do not need to orchestrate their downfall, and you absolutely do not need to put on a cheap performance of your own to prove your immense worth to anyone. Your only singular mandate in this heavy season is to maintain your formidable, electrified boundaries, to keep cultivating your profound, unshakable internal peace, and to aggressively, unapologetically continue expanding your massive intellect and your soaring spirit. Every time you choose your internal architecture over their external illusions, you win. Every time you refuse to dim your brilliant mind to make their ignorance comfortable, you solidify your place as a chosen one. Let them desperately stack their flimsy cards in the wind. Let them wear their cheap, borrowed costumes. You just keep laying your heavy bricks on solid ground. Subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, drop a comment with what point hit you hardest, and share this video with someone who needs the reminder. Stay chosen, stay blessed.